I like people falling down.
Well, as we get started, we should start by saying we have with us the newest father on the New Life staff.
Yes.
You and Elizabeth Whalen came, tell me the date.
July 4th at 8:16 in the morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, after 28 hours of labor, my wife is a champion.
My word.
So, yeah, it was crazy. So, But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, I know we were texting with everybody, keeping up with how that was going, and when the baby finally came. Okay, details.
Yeah.
He's like how tall and how heavy?
Well, he was 9 pounds and 5 ounces when he was born. Yeah, she was all baby. The funniest part is after everything settled down, she was like, I lost 10 pounds today. So it was awesome. So, and then he was 21 inches long. I think he's up to 10 pounds now. I don't know, how detailed do you want to get? He's eating about 4 ounces every 3 hours. So it's funny that we're talking about being unplugged and rest, because I have like 4 hours of sleep right now. So I need rest. I need sleep.
So you need to get rid of all the unnecessary stress possible.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to tell you that it's going to get easier, but that's
go.
not going to happen for about 18 years.
Okay.
So I can look at it from hindsight and tell you that, you know what, I will say this. As we raised our boys, I enjoyed every next step better. I'm not little tiny baby. They're so cute, but I'm not really into the total dependency.
Yeah.
And so the more independent they became, the more we could have conversations. Even today, the more they provide grandchildren, it's all good. You know. So
my dad told me that.
Yeah, I've enjoyed every next step better.
I like you better now that you're older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So.
Yeah, my dad would say the same exact thing. So, but I think the coolest part is I was terrified of this stage of just the newborn. I'd never held people's children. Like how you just kind of figure it out, and like these instincts that you never knew you had, like just kick in, and things that used to gross you out or bother you. Like I've had poop on my hand today, like, and it was like, whatever. I just wash. No, yeah. But like, it's just crazy how that kind of, there's like a switch that literally flipped in a moment, and it's just been cool figuring it out. So
God's pretty brilliant that way.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I mean, they don't come, babies do not come with handbooks.
No.
And yet you do figure it out somehow. Yeah. So on this issue of alleviating stress, this is a very stressful time in our culture. And it's there for a lot of different reasons. But I'll start with this story. We just got back from family vacation. So we were down with the family down at the beach in North Carolina. And we just, we honestly, in 7 days, we ate out 3 times.
Nice.
Total. That's lunch, breakfast, dinner, all of it, 3 times total. So we cooked at the house. We stayed at the house. We didn't turn the TV on much. We just hung out. We played more cards than I played in years, and we just disconnected. Literally for about 10 days, the only news or media or social media that I got hold of was alerts that would come up on my phone, and I kind of dismissed those fairly quickly. So we did disconnect. So I got back, and my normal pattern in the morning while I make my coffee is I'll watch the news for about 30 minutes to see if anything new is going on, and it's not. And then I watch maybe sometimes in the afternoon while I'm cooking, and so I'll watch news. I found when I started watching it, 2 things were true. First of all, the news these days is like an old soap opera. It never changes. The story's exactly the same as it was when I left.
Yeah.
And number 2, as I watched it and some of the discussions that was going on, I could feel my stress level elevate.
Wow.
And I think there's so much going on in culture that I think we need to find ways that we can unplug from what's going on. So how's all this affecting you guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's funny because I actually am one of those weird people that love social media. Like a lot of people will say, I do it because I have to, or, whatever. But it's part of my job. So I get excited by what it can do and the cool things that it does offer us. But lately, it's been the same thing. Super stressful, super overwhelming. And I'll catch myself getting into comment threads and interested in the people on both sides of things. And everyone
I think that's always a mistake.
It is. I know it is. And you'll see 364 comments and you're like, I who agrees with me, who agrees with someone else.
Yeah.
And I was on the couch, and we had put my 2-year-old daughter to bed, and we were sitting watching TV, and I was just scrolling, and my husband looked over at me, and he's like, "What's wrong?" My face had contorted so bad because I was so angry at the things I was reading. He was like, "Put your phone down. We're done now." I was like, "You're right." Like, I didn't even realize how much I had gotten in my feelings that my face was like, So I've taken a little bit of a break because you have to. You have to intentionally do that.
Yeah, and that's been the coolest thing about like just being a new dad and stuff is like it was kind of a forced unplugged where like my phone was the first thing I picked up in the morning and the last thing I put down before I go to bed because I would set the alarm. But now it's like I kiss that child right when I get up and right when I go to bed, and it's like it's crazy just how content I am right now being unplugged. Because you guys talked about it with C.T. Wilson, is you get these keyboard warriors or even just the news, like everyone is fighting for their side and they feel like their opinions and their thoughts are what's right and what's truth, and they're fighting for that, but it becomes so violent and so negative when there is disagreement, and you can't really read tone through social media, through Facebook and things like that. So everything sounds, 100 times angrier, 100 times more sarcastic and stuff like that. And it really affects people,
And let's give validation to the fact that, the stresses we face are very real. The keyboard warriors did not create them. Right. The COVID-19 is real. It's not created by somebody online who wanted to say something. Right. The whole Black Lives Matter movement. This is real. Yeah. These concerns, these concerns of police brutality, these concerns of institutional racism, they're real. And COVID has given us one other reality, which is, as you're aware here at the church, even everything about how you do your job has changed. Yeah. The normal is gone for everybody. And it just about doesn't matter what your job is. Normal is out the door. So there's all these real stressors. So what we've got to do, I think, is we've got to disconnect from, how do I say this? The false add-ons, or the unnecessary add-ons. We don't. All these stresses are real. We don't have to fight with somebody on social media in the comment section.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's just making it worse. So we're going to step into a moment as a church where we're going to ask people to begin to unplug from some social media, and we need to be careful here because. Here's what I believe. Let me see if you agree. Because some social media calms me, but some stresses me, and so I need to fast from what stresses me. It's just like any other fast. Yeah, just like any other fast. You never fast broccoli.
Right.
Never fast health food.
Yeah. Right.
You should fast candy, chocolate, dessert, sugar, sodas, things that are hurting you. You should fast those things, but don't fast the things that are good for you. Same thing's going to apply here. So in social media, tell me some things that what calms you, what helps.
I love accounts that post encouraging Bible verses, things, especially when I get really busy in my own day and I forget to do it for myself. Like I'll start to scroll and I'll see that someone else had a devotional time that morning and they were encouraged by it, and I'm like, ooh, that's good. Like I need to, and that reminds me to stop for a second and open my Bible. And
but as you're scrolling and you see that positive one, do you have to pass by a couple that are negative on
Always.
the way?
And that's the cool thing about social media, though. We can choose to hit that unfollow button. Yes. And I think we have to.
Say that again.
We can choose. Like you can unfollow anybody that's causing you stress or anybody that's causing you that extra finger flick that's going to eventually give you arthritis.
You can, with one click, fast somebody else.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good.
Unless you're going to have a personal one-on-one conversation with them over the phone or whatever.
Right.
You don't have to hear every thought that they have.
That's true.
That's true.
I don't even know what to hear every thought that I have, much less
Exactly.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah. So
all
that's
right.
encouraging.
Well, we're going to encourage people to do this. What do you find encouraging?
I like people falling down. That's the main thing I use Facebook for right now. Is it just brings me a level of joy that I'm not the only clumsy person in the world. So I legitimately will scroll through. I like the creativity aspects of like social media too, like on Facebook and things like that. There's a ton of people like the life hacks and like the craft videos, like some of those things. Like people are so interesting, and it's entertaining to see like things that aren't really like that big of a deal, like problem wise, like they're coming up with creative solutions for that. So like those are things that I find enjoying. And then like puppies, I do, like, so I've kicked around the idea of trying to trick the algorithm and just follow a bunch of like just puppies and things like that, so that instead of it, like the Facebook's algorithm is built on outrage. Right. Like they're gonna throw, if you say I'm a Republican or a Democrat, guess what you're gonna be filled with? The opposing opinion, because that drives traffic up to their site. So outrage is what it's fueling their platform. So I've kicked around the idea of just all dogs, like just following dog pages, following stuff like that to try to like, I don't want to see anything else right now and see if that actually works.
Facebook, Google, all these other, Instagram, are profiting off of our stress.
100%.
Because it drives clicks. So, and that's their currency, because anytime you click on their site, there's an ad, right? And that increases the chances of you clicking and buying something. And so it's just nuts how the whole thing is built. And I just for a long time I don't want to play that game anymore. We don't have time. No. So, but that's.
So we're starting a new sermon series that we're calling Unplugged. But in all honesty and full disclosure, it was written as a series called Finding Peace. And during this series, during the month of August, is when we're going to be asking people to kind of unplug from the stressors in their life. And this series, when I put it together, it was when I put this together when COVID kind of first happened. And you remember those few weeks when Governor Hogan just shut down the entire state, and then Virginia did the same thing, and it was, everybody literally was at home, and it was just an odd, frightening, really weird world. And that's when this sermon series came about, because I think in times that are shaken like this, that shake us, I think we've got to find peace in the midst of the change and the turmoil, or else it's just going to eat away at us. We're going to end up with PTSD from COVID. And we've got to be careful that we find ways to kind of back up, find peace. And when it came to this was a great application of the series, Unplug.
So it's Psalm 23, right?
That's where we start. We start with Psalm 23 because there are a few, for me anyway, Psalm 23 is not, it may not even be in the top 10 of my favorite scriptures. However,
there is a lot of scriptures.
Yeah, there are. There are. But however, it is calming. And I think it's calming in some ways because of the way the church has used it. It's Psalm 23 is like the song Amazing Grace. You hear Amazing Grace and you just so you hear Psalm 23 and you just start to relax. But I looked in there and I saw what I thought was a pattern that we could follow, and so that's where we're going to launch, and that'll help us set a pattern that we can follow as we go forward. So.
Did you want to talk about that pattern, or do you want to save that for Sundays?
No,
no, I didn't know.
No. The pattern is going to be rest, rely, and remember.
Okay.
So rest is the unplugged part. You never recharge until you stop burning. You just can't. You have to turn it off for it to recharge. And so I think we've got to choose. I think rest is something you've got to choose. It's real easy in a moment like yours.
Yeah, because I'm exhausted. So,
And you've got something so important.
Yeah.
That you look at the rest of the world and go, yeah, y'all do what you want to.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were talking about this earlier. It's just like I've always been the type of person, especially when it came to like working here. I want to be in every room. I want to be in every meeting. I want to be connected because I believe in the vision and mission of this church. And and I've kind of like me and my wife both work here. We've given our lives to this ministry and this stuff, and then it's crazy how it just flips because then that baby was born and I've never been so content with being disconnected even from this place. Right. I'm just like, man, no offense, but keep giving me my check and I'll keep showing up, I promise, sometimes. But like and tell me what you need me to do, but like I'm good. Yeah. Like and there's a level of just contentment, but trust too for everyone else. Like I don't need to be a part of everything. Right. What I need to do is take care of that boy.
And what happened, what set that apart is you had something more important than the noise. Okay, everybody's got to find that. Yeah, they've got to find something more important than the noise, and everybody doesn't have a newborn. Yeah, everybody doesn't have a brand new grandbaby. Everybody doesn't have. What you've got to do is you've got to decide. Maybe you just have to decide that your mental health is more important than the noise, and you just turn it off. That's the rest.
I think too, like the relationships that you have, with other people, that needs to be bigger than the noise. We'll get into this later. I'm going to preach about it and share it and stuff. But the birth of Waylon was super traumatic in the moment. It was bad. Right. And I had Robert, Curtis, Dave just Marco Poloing me and texting me throughout the whole thing. I'm getting emotional throughout the whole thing because my family wasn't allowed to be there because of COVID. I was in the room on my own. My wife is being basically operated on. Right. And the word you never want to hear is this baby's not breathing. We got to go now. That's what happened. And I'm sitting there like, what do I do? I'm the most helpless, the hardest I've ever prayed, and it's the people around me. Like if I didn't have that support, even through technology, through the phone, it's like, I didn't know what I was going to do. There was this moment where it was just like, my brain always goes to extremes, but I could lose the woman I love in this moment and the child. Like, what have I done to my family in this moment, And it's those people who are just like, praying for me, speaking into me. This happens. It's going to be okay. You just got to, pointing me back to Christ. That I don't know if I would have gotten through that moment if things had turned for the worse without them.
See, that's the rely. Yeah. That's the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're great. You're great. That's perfect because that's the rely. You relied. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Yep. Mm-hmm. They made you say, hey. This is you're good. You're going to be okay. This happens. Yeah, we're good. And you know what? Even if it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, we're here. Yeah, God's here, and they turn you back to Christ. That's the rely part. Because you'll never find peace in the midst of stress unless you know that you're taken care of. Yeah, there's something you can stand on. Yeah, something you can rely on. And here's what you're going to be able to do long term. That story you just told, you're going to tell it the rest of your career.
I know.
Yep. And it's going to be in sermons all over the place. Why? Because that's the third point. You'll remember. You'll remember that God brought you through that. Yeah. Yep. And you'll remember that your God and your friends and the pastors around you, all of that came together to bring you through that. When Robert was, 5 years old, 4 years old, real young, maybe 5. He had to have surgery for a growth in his inner ear, and I remember going to a tent meeting and a bunch of pastor friends. I just said, "Hey, will you guys pray for my boy?" And I cried, and they gathered around. But there was this peace and strength, this relying and remembering. They brought rest because they got around me and they prayed, and we all believed together.
Yeah, that verse, carrying each other's burdens in Galatians, like that's just how I felt. I mean, even Rice Camp, everyone, like, do you need, what can we do? Even when we came home, what's going on? How's the baby? Things like that. It's just like, that's what has to separate us from the rest of the world is that we are people who follow in Christ's example and we carry each other through things. But I think if we don't unplug and we allow our brain to just continue at 100 miles an hour, we get home from work, we engage with social media and fight against these keyboard warriors, then we're going to miss the burdens of those people who are so important to us and that really need us to speak truth and love into their lives in their situations.
That chaos and anger can enter the church family.
Yes.
If we allow it. And while we have to have the conversation, we can't allow the crazy to enter into our church family. And I believe that it will help us if people will find ways to unplug. Not from everything.
Right. That's well, I was going to share something too. Like we had a very similar story with Ava, where she went straight from the hospital to Georgetown, and I had to stay. I couldn't go with her when she was born. She was my first kid. And I was separated from her for 3 days. And one of the things that's positive about social media was I was so overwhelmed with telling people what was happening and asking people to pray, and it was so scary. I put one post out about what was happening and didn't read any of the responses until later because I was so overwhelmed, but all of them were these, I love you, I'm praying for you. I love you, I'm here, we're here. We can't talk to you right now, but so that's the one thing. When you're talking about unplugging from social media, you don't have to take it all away. Some of it is great. People get the opportunity and you can go back and remember. Like now every year on the week before Ava was born, I see these memories that pop up on Facebook that say, a year ago, all of these people told you how much they love you and how much they were praying for you. And it's like, I get goosebumps thinking about it because you're like, I know how many people were thinking about my little girl, and I remember that every single year now because Facebook does one really cool thing, pop your memories up. So if you are putting things out there and saving things that are positive and encouraging, Facebook will remind you each year on the same day of what was cool that was happening. So that's just a cool.
Sum it up. Hang on to what helps. Unplug from what hurts. And let's find peace in the middle of all this chaos.
That's right. That's good.